Hey glitter friends! In today's tutorial, I'll show you how to make a V-split tumbler using two separate types of vinyl. So, let's get started. We're going to start by sanding and prepping our 30-ounce tumbler with Rustoleum Ultra Matte spray paint in Rustic Pink. Once my spray paint is dry, I'm going to take a small craft brush and my Aleene's Tack-it over and over and begin to apply a thin coat over the entire tumbler. Once my Tack-it is fully dried clear, it's time for glitter application. Today I'm using Lottie from Mr. NOLA'S Glitter, which is a beautiful, chunky, opalescent glitter mix. So you might be wondering, why is this crazy person dumping out all of her glitter? So I found that with super chunky mixes, the easiest way to get my pieces to lay flat and not disrupt the other glitter is to roll it flatly onto the surface just like this. Along with saving yourself some hardcore sanding down the way, you are also giving yourself a chance to really make sure all of your Tack-it is covered and that there are no empty spots. To prevent my glitter from moving, I'll hit this with some clear spray paint and then epoxy its first layer before our next step. Once my epoxy is dry, I am ready to start applying my vinyl. I'm going to start with a 12 by 12 inch piece of Peekaboo sticky sheet from Mr. NOLA'S Glitter. I like to start my application with my vinyl design that will be flush with the edge of my cup. The easiest way to make sure that I am aligning this properly and that it will go on straight is by standing it up just like this and using a level surface to make sure that your design is flush. Once I'm satisfied with its placement, I will take a pencil and draw a small mark on the back of my sticky sheet so I can cut the width correctly. To ensure clean, straight lines, I'll be using my tiny but mighty paper cutter. At this point, I've once again used my wrap to measure technique and have cut the height of my tumbler as well. You'll notice that it is not flush with the bottom of the tumbler because for this design, I've chosen to leave that blank with glitter. Taking into account how I want my vinyl placed on my cup, I'll now fold my pre-cut piece in half. Because I made sure to measure the width to the precise width of my tumbler and the height exactly what I wanted it, I can now take this middle folded section and easily draw a triangle pattern from the edge to the top on both sides. Unlike my design here that is intentionally leaving an exposed ring of glitter at the bottom, you can easily create a template like this so your V-split design covers the entire tumbler simply by adjusting the height to include the entire tumbler measurements. I'll check one last time to make sure my triangle pattern is facing the correct way to go on my tumbler before I will begin to cut this out manually very carefully with a pair of scissors. After I've finished cutting my template out, I will take it and once again wrap it around my tumbler on a flush level surface to ensure that my edges meet where I want them to and that the design will lie straight. Before I attach this cut piece of vinyl onto our tumbler, I'm first going to use it as a template for the other half of our V-split design. I'm going to line up the bottom edge with this other piece of 12 by 12 sticky sheet from Mr. NOLA'S and go ahead and use painter's tape to tape it down so it doesn't wiggle in the process while I'm tracing it. While it might be a little hard to see here, I'm leaving about a 1/8 inch gap on both sides around this triangle. This will allow me to have a little bit of overlap just in case my measurements were slightly off or if I don't happen to get my vinyl lined up perfectly. I truly believe that tiny measuring mistakes are very easy to make, and we all know how difficult it can be to line up your vinyl properly sometimes. So I always think it's best to give yourself a little leeway. I'll go ahead and cut this section out carefully as well, and then we will be ready to start our vinyl application. Because this is the slightly smaller piece of vinyl out of the two, we will apply this one to our tumbler first. I'm sure you've noticed throughout this entire tutorial that I am constantly relining up my vinyl to check for placement. Trust me, it's much easier to do this than to try to remove vinyl and risk ripping it to fix it if you've messed up. Now that I've got an idea of where on the tumbler I want to exactly place my vinyl, I will fold back one corner, making sure to line the edges up straight. Once again, your flat level surface will be your best friend in applying this initial piece of vinyl, as it gives you a way to make sure your design is not crooked. I'll secure this initial corner of vinyl while my tumbler is still upright before turning it onto its side to continue my application. Because I've left this corner of backing attached instead of cutting it off, you can see it creates a nice little tab to pull, so your vinyl will basically just roll onto the cup easily as you carefully work your way around. Personally, I prefer to take my time and work very slowly in an effort to minimize any type of air bubbles or pockets that you could get with your vinyl. I'll continue working my way around until I have about 1.5 inches left of my vinyl, to where I will apply that manually after removing the entire backing. If you've chosen to make sure your V-split design runs the length of your entire cup, then you will simply follow the last vinyl's instructions, making sure that your edge of vinyl and your cup are flush together on a level surface. Since I've altered my design slightly from that, I will basically be lining up my vinyl and eyeing the bottom, trying to make sure that this bottom edge is even all the way around and lines up with the other point of my vinyl that is already applied to the cup. Once I've made sure that my next piece of vinyl is going to slightly overhang on my previously applied one, I will pull back a corner and gently begin to apply it just like the first layer. After you've secured that corner, you can basically pull your vinyl slightly taut to make sure that your edges align. Clearly mine did not, so I'm going to ever so gently pull up a corner with my X-Acto knife, flatten it back down, and start over. Checking to be sure that I am happy with the alignment, I will now begin to pull back my little backing tab and apply the vinyl all the way around the cup. Okay, so now that the hard part is over, let's take care of that itty bitty bit of overhang that you created, just to make sure you're on the safe side. I like to use painter's tape to create a line template just because it's easier for me to see where to use my X-Acto knife, but it is possible to simply just follow the line where you can see the dent in your vinyl. going to use fairly light pressure when using my X-Acto knife because I would much rather have to go back over a section that didn't fully cut rather than mess up the vinyl underneath by cutting too hard. After you repeat this process on the other side just like you did before, you should end up with two triangles that are the exact same size and make your perfect V-split design. While I already like the look of this design, I want to take it up a notch by adding some vinyl pinstriping. For this design, I'm going to be extremely extra and take it up a notch by doing 3 layers of pinstriping. I'll be doing this for 2 main reasons. 1, because I wanted to incorporate 3 of the bold colors into my pinstriping design, and 2, because I am not epoxying over this vinyl before I lay my pinstriping. The 3rd thin layer of pinstriping should work to hide any line of the vinyl underneath. The vinyl I've chosen for my striping is a regular black vinyl, just permanent vinyl that you can find anywhere. Then my 2nd layer will be a metallic chrome fuchsia color. And then my 3rd will be finished with a light pink pearlized vinyl. So the width and size of your first layer of vinyl pinstriping is really just a personal preference. I want to say I used just under 1/3 of an inch for this. I also took that measurement and then just divided them in halves, going down to where my pink was significantly smaller. If you're a Cricut user like I am, and you want to recreate this exact size, the measurements I used for the width were 0.3 for the black, 0.15 for your metallic fuchsia, and 0.07 for your light pink pearl. I chose to apply my vinyl pinstriping on the bottom last after everything else because I didn't want there to be any overhang from my V-split design of the pinstriping, and I think it just gives it a more finished, cleaner look. After I complete the rest of my vinyl work here, I will let it adhere to the cup properly for a few hours so I won't have any issues with lifting in my next layer of epoxy. After my second layer of epoxy is dry, I will go back in with my Dremel flap wheel and I will use it around the rim of my cup to remove the paint, glitter, and vinyl so my final layer of epoxy will have a good seal. At that point, I will add my third and final layer of epoxy and my cup will be complete. And that's all she wrote. Thank you guys so much for joining us today, and don't forget to hit that follow button to keep up with all of our upcoming tutorials. See you next time. Bye!